fasten your seatbelt. Keep your hands and arms inside the ride at all times. It's the official launch of Living with Lewy. We'd like to just take a minute and tell you exactly why we decided to start this podcast. I live with Lewy body dementia on a day-to-day basis. It has certainly an effect on me and on my family and everyone that knows me and loves me. Hope someone loves me. At any rate, you do?
A couple of us.
You sure?
There's a few.
Okay.
A few of us.
Heard I'm an acquired taste, but I'm not sure. But the reason that we decided to do this is when I first was diagnosed, it was so hard to find any information that wasn't kind of negative. I mean, when you looked, you found things such as, life expectancy and things like that. It was all negative material that I really didn't. That's the core edge of the internet today, is that you can get too much information.
Definitely is that you can get too much negative information.
So,
Looking at information and everything like that, it was scary at first. And I know Dad had said to me at one point that a lot of the things that he could find were from just the caregiver perspective, and not as much the person that was actually diagnosed with Lewy body and actually feeling it.
sometimes I think that it's very hard to articulate to others exactly what we're feeling. I see in the Facebook pages Facebook groups that I belong to, where people can take some time and I guess put their thoughts into writing. We'd like to have a forum where we can put it into words and hopefully give some positive reinforcement to people who are diagnosed with Lewy body dementia.
And their family and everything like that. You talk about the dynamic, it affects the whole family. It's a family disease, like a lot of other major diseases. Like that. They say that about stuff like that.
Well, I said when I had cancer that it wasn't just me.
It wasn't. All of us.
So, Abbie, why don't you tell our listeners, first of all, because I'm sure that there's not just people here that have Lewy body, but others that maybe don't quite understand what Lewy body is. So why don't you give them a brief synopsis of what Lewy body is? When we Googled this, we went to
a couple of different Mayo Clinic. Says that Lewy body dementia is the second most common type of progressive dementia after Alzheimer's. You don't know, Lewy bodies are protein deposits in the brain, and they affect a lot of things.
some of the signs and symptoms can include visual hallucinations,
movement disorders. A lot of times it can be mistaken for Parkinson's.
you have
There's the muscle rigidity and be tremors and everything.
the shuffling while walking was one of the things that was kind of there in the early stages of my diagnosis. Autonomic nervous system, that's one that is kind of hard to describe to people because I know that my autonomic system sometimes creates problems for me with sweating and whatnot. I've read other people have problems like that. Sleep difficulties, that's one of the hallmarks of this, and also involves acting out in your sleep. So
Also linked to depression and apathy. Those both kind of go hand in hand anyway. One of the things when Dad was first diagnosed, would ask me, "What is Lewy body?" So I figured it was a good actually give a little bit of a oversight into what it is. I think when you were first diagnosed, when somebody would ask me what it was, I would immediately say that it was what Robin Williams had.
Oh, yes, it is what Robin Williams had. But that's probably one of the best known cases, recent history anyway, of one who was suffering from Lewy body, and people thought that he was just depressed. Don't know that they fully understand what was going on with him until after he had passed. They were able to find the deposits of the proteins on his brain cells postmortem.
When they get big enough, they can show up on scans. I used to work as a nursing assistant, and I had a patient. I had a patient when I did home health that had Parkinson's with Lewy bodies, which is another thing that can happen with Parkinson's as well as dementia. But I know his was advanced enough that they could actually see the Lewy bodies on his scans. I remember that. This man has been deceased for probably about a decade now. That's why I'm telling this story.
There's a lot of similarities, and I think that's why it's so often misdiagnosed for so many people is Parkinson's, or these are more dementia, then they often misdiagnose it as Alzheimer's. I think it takes a little bit of time. In my case, anyway, it took quite a few months of clinical observation before they moved forward with more advanced tests and were able to come with the diagnosis of Lewy
With all
body.
that obviously causes a lot of issues in day-to-day life and everything like that.
Oh, I think that things happen, you don't know why they're happening. And to think that maybe you're losing your grip on reality, and maybe you are. I don't know. You know, that in my own case, I get a lot of very heavy fog sometimes. That's what I call it. That's one of the things that we're going to talk about in one of the upcoming episodes, because I think it needs to have a little bit more time dedicated to it. And my success with living with Lewy is certainly I give a lot of credit to my therapy team. I have a great group of therapists that come in, and they help me all kinds of how to manage my life here at home so that I can stay independent. They help me with my speech, which has had its share of issues. And they've helped me a lot with my movement and my ability to maintain my balance, control. So that for me has been one of the biggest helps in getting that therapy team together.
And in the future, we want to talk more about therapy that specifically Dad's been using to help him.
I'm going to bring on the therapists as well.
Therapists and anybody else that would like to share their story or how Lewy body affects their life as well, whether it be a caregiver or someone else that has Lewy body.
You go looking around for things, you find forums, if you will, for caregivers. Find forums for people that live with Lewy body. You don't often find too many things that kind of cross over and talks about both. And really, when you stop and think about it, Lewy body does affect not only me, affects my entire family, everyone around me. And so by educating people as to what Lewy body is, giving people a chance to talk about it, I think, and allowing the conversations to take place, people are going to hear things that will resonate with them because they understand that feeling, and they'll have something that they need to hear is that they're not the only one,
Not
and
alone.
they're not alone. And there's a lot of good advice that I see that comes from looking at other people's experiences with Lewy body. So that's what we hope to do. We hope to bring some of those experiences to light where you can kind of spread the news and make it so that
Awareness.
right, bring awareness and also to let people know that, look, because you get diagnosed with Lewy body, it does not mean that you cannot have some semblance of fulfilling life. It's not a sentence that says that you're just going to go down a rabbit hole and never
When
come
Dad
back.
was first diagnosed, he had pretty much decided that he was going to be gone.
When I was first diagnosed and I read things that I referenced earlier, some of the things that I saw online where you just see what life expectancy is and things like that. It's like, good grief, I've got no
Look
place.
up what you've just been diagnosed with, and all you find is negative, 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 negative. Which I also had a little bit of an experience with too. I suffer from a chronic illness that I will talk about when we talk about my story a little bit. I think it was probably like back in January when Dad came to me and he had an idea about writing an article or something like that from the caregiver perspective, or not from the caregiver perspective, because all we could find was from the caregiver perspective, and he wanted my help with it. I like to write and tinker with things sometimes, but um, then it quickly, we kind of forgot about it for a while, and then I guess, maybe about a month ago, you said something to me, and we're like, let's do a podcast. Do you want to do a podcast? Because I've been talking about trying to start a podcast for probably about a year and a half, and I think Dad looked into more, and then he was like, "Oh, I think this is what we need to do, and not necessarily write an article." Because Dad is gifted in sound. He used to be a sound tech, sound engineer, however you want me to say it. I'm not sure. With a local band from where we're from, and has always been one of his passions.
Well, I think that what made me decide to do a podcast was I felt like there needs to be a place where people can air their stories and have them heard. And for me personally, it's therapeutic because I have to think about what we're doing and how we're going about it and making sure that we're putting out a quality product. So it's therapeutic to me from that perspective, and I hope that my story and the other things that we want to bring this program will be therapeutic to others. And that's really why we started it. We want to share with others and hopefully make it so that it's a little easier of a journey.
We just want to create a sense of community for everybody that suffers with this, and anybody that is affected by it, touched by it, has been touched by it in their life.
I think that's exactly what we're trying to do, is create a forum for everybody, and just to make sure that everybody knows that they're not alone. And that's kind of that's our journey. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to accomplish.
One of my favorite, I'm a huge Carrie Fisher fan. One of my favorite Carrie Fisher quotes is, "Take your broken heart and turn it into art." And this is our version of doing that, because it definitely broke our heart at first when we found out about this. And like we said, all the bleak statistics and everything that they come out with, it is a hard pill to swallow.
Can be. I agree. I think that it was very difficult at first to swallow that pill.
So we want to take the bad and make it into something good and hopefully help someone. It's always been a big thing for me, and I'll talk about it more.
I want to thank you for listening to our launch, and we want to let you know that the upcoming episode will be me trying to tell my story to the best of my recollection, which will tell you is a little out of sequence, but that's kind of the way it is when you have Lewy body. So I certainly don't want to hide that portion. Do the best I can.
And then I will be here to fill in some of the gaps in the story.
Thank you again. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this edition of Living with Lewy.